35. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Technology. This is Kate from Katie Did Rocks, and we are live from Tucson. We're going to be doing a lot of lives today. The first stop that we stopped at was a shop called BEAD Holiday, which is also a place that has Fastener's Paradise. So Jim said, "Oh, we got to go to that." And I ran into this wonderful fellow who's the owner. His name is David, and he's going to tell us a little bit about some of his collection.
Yeah. Tell me when you're ready.
And action!
Hi, I'm David Smith. I am the owner of Fastener's Paradise and the author of The Language of Beads, a Beader's Guidebook, which I wrote in 2012. And I wrote it because I'm a shop owner. And as a shop owner, you see a lot of people come in with broken things and a lot of stuff that happens. And I just saw so much misinformation out there of people crimping things wrong, doing things wrong, that just didn't hold up. It's not that they're wrong, it's just they didn't hold up. So I wrote a book called The Language of Beads, which you are welcome to purchase. I've been in this town and in this building for 27 years. And we have 40,000 varieties of beads. We have a ton of stuff. But I have also an amazing bead collection. And most of that collection has been locked away in a safe. And every once in a while, it might be out and I'll show somebody something, but it wasn't really where it should be, where people can enjoy it. So I've had a dream for decades to have a bead museum. And it all just kind of came together very last minute in the last few weeks. So I don't have my little note cards up explaining the history of every little thing, but I have a bead museum and it's amazing. And it's not my whole collection. So come on, Kate, come over here and I'll start here. I'm going to start down here because this is probably the most famous bead collection in America. It is the 1971 Arizona Highways bead collection. Now, this is not all of it because it's kind of been here and there, and pieces have been sold off, and who knows what's happened to them. But that is White Bear's necklace. And he was Crow. And as you know, the Crow Reservation is up in Montana. But the two pieces on the bottom, the Hubble bead piece, these four that are still in bags, and the White Bear necklace are all the actual beads from the Arizona Highways July 1971 collection. In addition to that, I got a lot more stuff from the same guy, a wonderful guy, Phil Fishman over in Vista, California. There's some great stuff here. There's Plains Indians bone beads. There's some old Chinese glass beads, European glass beads. Really, really awesome stuff that, again, you see we're just opening up. It's still in the bag. So we need to get it out, lay it out. I don't really have a degree in museum curation, but that's how it is when you're self-employed. You just figure stuff out. And those are called Hubble trade beads. They're glass beads made to look like turquoise. And in Germany, we call that a turquoise matrix bead. And then down below, if you scan down there, there's the big medallions are from a gal in Blackfoot, Idaho. And then the arrows were made by a friend, Peggy, in Navajo. She'd been beading for almost 70 years, and she could follow that pattern while she was maintaining eye contact with you. I've just never seen anybody bead like that. Just an amazing, amazing beader. Then on this shelf, there's a lot of Venetian glass, if you scan that way a little bit. And then this beaded piece here, this is actually a tiny mini skirt that when the English came to Africa, they were like, "Oh my God, these women are running around with no clothing. You must clothe yourself." And so they made these little tiny beaded mini skirts, which I don't know if that did much to assuage the British problem. So then in the background, you can see these Venetian sample cards. And they are not the sample cards from the 20s. They're old sample cards that a current collection was sewn on. But the beads are of course, quite old. And this is Giacomo de Carlo's personal collection that was in his home. If you scan up here, you can see this is the book that he wrote. And many of the beads in the collection are in his book. And then here's a letter from him, saying, "Enjoy the collection. It's from my home, blah, blah, blah." Up the top here, there's they call these Russian blues. Here's some old carnelian, some really quite rare different trade beads all over the map. And again, I need to get all the information out there. on what exactly is there, where it's from, what it's called, because they all have names and histories and different stuff. And then those cases that you're looking at now are from California. So there's some European seed beads that were traded, but there's a lot of shell beads and clothing ornaments that were made in California by the indigenous tribes there. This little group right here was loaned to me by my friend Dale. He goes, well, I want some of my stuff in the collection. So there's a jade Olmec mask pendant, 2 Pumtec beads. On the left is a bat. If you look at that, that's actually a South American, a bat symbol that they would wear a pendant. And there's bats that are 6 inches and 8 inches wide, just astounding. And then these right here in the middle now with the Islamic writing on them, I kind of don't know. They don't have holes in them. They're two-sided, so they might be kind of like a good luck stone. And then these are the Roman or possibly Phoenician eye beads. So that's a glass bead. And, just another fantastic bead. Then over here, we've got some great stuff. And some of us might remember from the 70s, the headdress. And the funny thing, the oval shaped beads there are called spaghetti beads, just oddly. So some of us remember that stuff. So the bead history, we don't just want the ancient, we want really a great variety of stuff. These beads right here are called Hebron glass, and they were last made about 140 years ago, and they were made easily for 150 years prior to that. So these could easily be over 200 years old. This over here with the yellow is commonly called Vaseline or uranium glass. And then this collection here, this is Turkoman tribe, Bedouin made, some of it from Israel, different areas around the Middle East. But this is from an old store that was located here in Tucson in the 1960s. And the gal and her daughter ran it, and the daughter came in and brought me all this old stuff, including this. And then if you come up here, those are actually elephant tusk ivory, and there's actually like a cross section of elephant tusk. And of course, up until the late 70s or 1981, I forget the exact year, when the import ban came in, tons of ivory was imported. And of course, so this is much older than that, ancient stuff. Down here, this is many times called pipestone. It isn't truly a pipestone like exists in Montana. It's actually aluminum ore, but it's a very, very soft stone, and so it was easily made into beads in Africa. Over on the left, these are called jatim beads. These are from Indonesia. Those are handmade glass beads that are easily about 1,000 or a little more than 1,000 years old. And there's a lot of copies out there. These are definitely the old beads, but they're making a lot of copies of both the Venetian and the jatim beads, and they're making them in Indonesia, and they're doing a great job. It's nice for people to be able to own a copy. These blue beads are called Padre beads because they were traded by the Catholic priests in the Southwest. So it's a very common Southwestern trade bead. All this stack here, the red with the dots are called skunks, the blue are called Russian blues, and these were all commonly traded here in Arizona. Over here is European glass, and look at those old Mardi Gras beads, glass beads. I guarantee you they didn't throw those back then, they would just wear them. And then some Egyptian motif, 1920s, from northern Czech Republic, which was German people doing the craft. But that's when they found Tutankhamun's tomb. It really was a huge fashion. And then if you see the metal dies there and the strips of buttons and stones, that's how pressed glass beads are made, is in a strip like that when the glass is hot. And then here's the actual mold that's kind of like a large pair of pliers, and they mash that together onto those big glass rods when they're molten, and they make the beads like they're all sitting in the dish right there, all pressed glass beads. Now over here, another just amazing. This is Tibetan, and some of that, like those in the newspaper there, are that's the newspaper I brought them home in 30 years ago. That's Tibetan turquoise and what they call Berber coral. These large beads with the eyes are called Z beads, which means sky, because the original Tibetans, 1500 years ago, not original, but the historically people that showed up and they go, "This is my land, I'm the first person here." They found beads like this on the ground, not this massive, of course. And so they said, well, they came from the sky. They came from God. And so these beads were held in very high regard. And one true Z bead now could be worth anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million for a Z bead right now. Yeah. And when I started doing this, they were hitting 8,000 and 10,000. I was like, that's crazy. But they just keep going up in value because they're very, very rare and very, very limited. And of course, the Tibetans and the Nepalese use a lot of coral and turquoise, very similar to the Southwest. So here are Corlaine d'Aleppo, Venetian trade beads. Here's some old, this is really the stone in the middle here, right there with the red. That is crystalline mercury. Now, they used to make beads out of that. And when the British showed up in China, they said, well, Mr. Emperor, I have a reason to explain to you why your dad and your grandfather and your great-grandfather and you guys all die in your 30s. Because that pendant that you think is good luck is actually mercury, and you're killing yourself. It's called cinnabar. And that crystal, that red crystal, can convert into liquid mercury at any time for any reason. Scientists still don't know why, whether it's pressure, heat, they've tried all these things, and it just, when it decides it's going to be liquid mercury, then that's what happens. Now, if you see the red beads kind of at the top of the screen that look like faces, and then some of the others with patterns, these are the old replacements for cinnabar. They're wooden beads that were painted with lacquer and then carved into the lacquer. And they're quite rare. And then the two large beads, the big disc right next to the crystal and the square one, those are more current. That's pressed resin. But they're all called cinnabar. But of course, none of them really contain cinnabar any longer. Now, all these glass beads in the background and that metal pendant and those little wooden bells, this is all Chinese material. The paper beads made in China. So again, quite rare. It's rare to find all this kind of stuff made in China. Now down here in the corner, that is a Mayan jade necklace.
That's gorgeous.
Isn't that something?
How old do you think it is?
It could easily be 1,000 years old. It's pre-Columbian, so
wow.
It's somewhere in that 700 and plus, because it's hard to date this stuff once it's left the field. Now over here, the jaguar head that's made by the Huichol Indians. And you might come, let me just see this just for a second, get where you can see his eyes and whatnot. So those are all tiny size 12 seed beads that are placed onto a wooden sculpture. And the Huichol, they take peyote, they go on a peyote journey, and then they come back and there's no pattern, they just start beating. So right under the nose is the sacred deer. To the right and the left of where the nostrils are kind of, is the peyote flower. There's also the scorpion, the hummingbird, the deer, the corn. The eyes are actually scorpions. So all the symbology from their culture is contained in this piece and all their pieces that they make like that. And behind them is yarn paintings, equally made with the same base of, it's a beeswax and pine resin glue. Now down on the bottom, this is all from coastal Mexico. So a lot of different kinds of shell necklaces, mainly a lot of spiny oyster, and with a few little stone and clay beads here and there. Then a large stone bead necklace. And some of these could be spindle whorls. And these clay beads here, and the ones over on the end, are spindle whorls. So they put that on a stick when they're winding yarn. Now the pattern pieces you're looking at right now, these square ones, those would be dipped into a dye, like a plant dye, and you could give your friend a tattoo for a festival. And you could use them for different, artistic uses, but very commonly they were used to stamp onto people's body at festival times. Now up on this shelf is same thing, spindle whorls, but they are from South America. A little bit smaller, but you can see the conical shape is quite frequent. Either one cone or what we call a bicone is a spindle whorl. Now the rest of these are kind of bagged up so they're hard to see, but there's some more great. There's some what we call sandcast or crowbow beads that are quite old, that are actually made in Africa from recycled glass. Up here is some shell and bone, and again, I apologize, it hasn't been quite put out. This bead right here, this Z bead, is actually a pendant or a pin that you wear, and that is from a bead, international bead symposium in I think 1991, and I was very lucky to get that. And then this top shelf right here, this dish, those are called Hubble beads, and they're again like the ones we saw across the way. They're a European glass bead that's made to look like turquoise. This little tray right here, these are Venetian, what we call a wedding cake bead, and these have a great story. My buddy Cliff Kelly found these in the Santa Cruz River right here in Tucson, Arizona. They were just washing out. That was the old dump, and he found them just kind of washed out along the river. So these are at the very latest 1920s. They could easily be from 1880. Why they ended up in the trash dump is anybody's guess.
Were they on the string still, or were they like individual?
No, they were one. It was they probably went 150 feet down the river.
Wow, how
they
cool.
they had washed out of the bank, and he was lucky enough to find them, and generous enough. He says, well, they need to be somewhere where people can enjoy them, Dave. He's an old cowboy, old miner from here in Tucson. That's awesome. So that's kind of the overview of the Bead Museum. There's a lot more to come out as we can make room and add more cases and do more stuff. Please do come visit. We're open 11 to 4:30, pretty much daily.
Maybe the address?
355 East Fort Lowell. It's Bead Holiday. Come take one today. We've been here 27 years. I've been doing this 30 years. And if you have bead knowledge, and if you want to come and share your knowledge with us and help us label and share the love of these beads, that would be awesome. We welcome you. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave.
You bet.
Let's see if I can figure out how to change this around. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. That was really informative, and Dave has not just a great collection, but his store is fantastic. Hello everybody who said hello. I'm sorry I was not able to respond. I wanted to just go ahead and make sure that I was filming him and his information. So we are headed to the Miners Co-op, where we will be doing yet another live stream, and this one I will be able to talk to you, so come along.